So I've just woken up, it's 8 in the morning. I'm in a French couple's house. I found last minute on Airbnb. What a crazy night. It's my birthday!
I had been travelling on the road for quite some time, and that morning I woke up outside Milan. But more importantly, I'd woken up a whole year older, and hopefully wiser.
So this is my view for today. Well, for this morning. I'm going to be shifting on afterwards. But more importantly, because it's my birthday, this means hot chocolate. And it also means birthday cake for breakfast. The world's saddest birthday cake. It's a cinnamon bun, but with the world's greatest view.
Laying in my tent last night, I thought about how I really wanted to do something special on my birthday. After the clock struck midnight, I came across an advert in a room for an old castle in the middle of France, 500 miles away. That morning I packed up my tent and I decided to head from just outside Milan to just outside Paris to spend my birthday doing exactly what I wanted to do. Staying in a creepy old castle in the middle of nowhere. Now, in order to accomplish this, it meant that it would involve a lot of motorways and a lot of toll roads, which wouldn't make for the most interesting content. However, with it being my birthday, I decided that today would be all about what I wanted to do.
Avvicinare la carta al lettore o inserire una carta o una tessera.
And so off I went to battle with the horrific toll roads that were hungry for money. It was toll road after toll road after toll road, and I continued to persevere nonetheless. I spent over £100 on motorway fees this day, and I never thought I'd say this, but I'm so glad we have road tax in the UK because getting around was expensive.
Guys, I paid like €70 in charges today. Like, holy smokes. Why is it so expensive? Oh my god.
I finally made it across the border and through the mountains, which meant one thing from here on in: some pretty nice views. I finally made it to the middle of France by sunset.
You think that I would ride 500 miles from Milano to the heart of France just because I found a discounted room for a castle online? Then you would be correct.
As I went to check in and show the receptionist my reservation, he acted out that he couldn't understand me due to the language barrier. So I wrote on a piece of paper that I had a room reservation in French. Without asking to see any form of ID, he motioned me to follow him. Now, I was a little bit confused, but assumed that perhaps we were going to find an employee who could speak English. But then he began to walk off site, beckoning me to follow. Stupidly but cautiously, I began to dawdle behind him. I was feeling really confused. We began to walk off the grounds and down the main road for the next 10 minutes. I wondered if perhaps I'd gone to the wrong hotel. Eventually, we stopped outside what looked like an apartment block. He motioned me to follow him again, and stupidly, I did. As we climbed the stairs, I began to realise what an utter idiot I was. The receptionist began unlocking the door to one of the apartments and handed me the key. Then, without saying anything, he just promptly walked away. I stood in this empty apartment block alone in the dark, wondering what on earth was going on. I then walked up and down the different floors, wondering if there was any other signs of life. I then went on my phone and checked the booking. I knew that this wasn't supposed to be where I was staying. I then checked Google Maps and discovered that I was actually standing in a completely different registered business. I returned to what was supposed to be my apartment for the evening, and I was exhausted and tired. Half of me just wanted to climb into bed and fall asleep, but the other part of me was screaming that something wasn't right. So I decided that my best port of call was to, well, confront the business. And so I walked down the abandoned country lane back to the hotel alone in the dark. When I arrived at reception, there was a second member of staff nearby who could speak perfect English. I started to explain that the room I had been given not only wasn't what I had booked, but it wasn't even the correct address. The receptionist then offered me the room that I had booked originally. I was so incredibly angry by this point. I didn't understand the reason as to why they decided not to check me in and to try and get me to stay somewhere else, but I knew that they weren't people that could be trusted. When I declined to switch rooms, they then offered me to eat and drink in the restaurant for free, and again, I was quite short and declined. I requested a refund and just wanted to get out. They claimed that it wasn't possible to refund me, and so I made them sign a document agreeing that they will, and I started to head out of the hotel. As I started to walk away, the staff continued to ask me where I was going and where I was planning to sleep. I simply just replied to every question that they asked me with, "I don't know." I walked as fast as I could towards my bike without trying to let on that I was terrified, and I rode into the darkness without a plan. My only goal in that moment was to ride away as far as I could.
I'm tired. I'm a little bit tired.
After an hour of blindly riding around, I pulled up at the side of the road in the middle of the French countryside. By this point, the adrenaline had worn off and I didn't know what to think. What I did know is that I needed to get it together and find somewhere safe to sleep, and then to deal with whatever happened in the morning. After a quick Google search and a few phone calls, I finally managed to find somewhere safe to stay, but it required another 30 minutes of riding. I was already exhausted, but it was the only option I had.
Okay, so I've just woken up. I've woken up in It's a French couple's house, an elderly couple. I stayed with them last night. I found them through Airbnb. The more I think about last night, the more I realised I made the right decision leaving, because I thought about it. When I went to check in, they didn't ask for my ID or anything like that. And everywhere I've stayed in every single country in the whole of Europe, I've had to hand over my passport for them to scan. And I've had to, on some of the places, I've had to give like a bank card. Obviously I've given them like an old expired one, but I've had to give him like a copy of my bank card to make sure there's like no damage. And when I went to check in, he didn't input anything on his computer. He didn't ask for any ID. He just gave me a key and told me to walk down the main street to this apartment block. And he didn't want to show me where the apartment block was at first. So then I just think, like, on paper, there was nothing to say that I'd ever arrived at the hotel, because they hadn't scanned my ID. He hadn't showed me where the room was until I asked. And if I had gone missing, what's to say that people could just be like, she never arrived? That's what's going through my head this morning. And then when I looked around this apartment block, the key and the lock on the door wasn't great. Like, it's just a simple, like, lock. It wasn't even like I definitely think that could have been picked. And I find it really weird that they told me to stay in this apartment block, and then when I went right back to reception to come play, they suddenly had a room available, and it's just like still. There's no, I don't know, so many red flags, and I know they did offer me another room on site after I said I wanted to leave. But by this point, I think when you're traveling alone, if you get spooked by something, there's no going back. Like, there was no going back. I felt so uncomfortable, and I don't know the reason why they'd asked me to stay in this abandoned apartment block, but I sure as hell wasn't going to stay in that hotel after that. But yeah, this apartment block, there was like no one around. None of the other like apartments had people in. Like, nothing. And I don't get scared easily. Like, I just don't. And I wasn't like particularly scared, but I don't know. The things weren't matching up for what you'd expect for booking in anywhere in Europe. Like the check-in procedure, the credit card check, the ID check, being showed your like room. Yeah, it didn't match up, so I'm really glad. But I rang my family like that evening that I left, and then like I told them like, hey, I'm moving hotels, because obviously it's like 9, 10 at night, and they just said thank God, because they just had visions of me disappearing and then everyone claiming they'd never seen me. So but yeah, I don't know. I could have been overreacting, but I think when you travel alone, it's those attention to details, like the check-in process, you really like have to look out for. And if something isn't quite right, you just get out. Like, even if it's perfectly safe, if something doesn't match up, you just get out. And I ended up booking this on Airbnb. It was roughly the same price as the hotel, but at least there's like no murderers. And they're gonna make me breakfast, which is really nice. So yeah, overall, not quite the birthday I was expecting, but we're here. The plan today is to go to the Black Forest.
However, of course folks, that's a story for next week.